Can you take us back to the early days of your, I'm going to say prior to real estate, share some pivotal moments or experience that set you on your path of where you are today?
Yeah, I'll keep it as short as I can because 30 years on, you get a bit sort of like, oh, everyone wants to talk about your story, but it's yeah, I went from like surfing and then I went into party in the city and then started taking drugs and bouncing and things like that. But I got quite involved in the whole criminal world in Sydney. And funny though, when I started that, I could see that there was a currency in that criminal world with the sort of more connected you are and the more feared you were. And I didn't know anything about it, but I sort of then started training at a gym called City Gym, which was like the only 24-hour gym, I think, anywhere.
That's my gym, actually.
Oh, is it? Yeah. So I started training there and I was like, I walked in one day with a guy from the party scene. His name was Steve. And I was like, how are you so big? Like I was like this skinny surfer. And he goes, oh, they all take steroids. And I was like, what's steroids? And he goes, oh, do you want some? And I was like, yeah, get me some. So I started taking them and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then over time, I don't know, started to develop, I don't know if you call it a profile exactly, but it was like, just got to know a lot of people and things. But then I got deeper and deeper into the drug world. So everyone was like, oh, you should be competing in bodybuilding. And I was like, so I always had like a good frame, but just quite lean, like a surfer thing. And then I wasn't disciplined enough. I just wanted to party and chase girls around, really. So, but then over time, that all started to go really sideways. And I ended up sort of homeless. Well, I ended up working for people that were all involved in that and then just doing lots of things. But something happened, sliding door moments in life.
Yes.
People that I sort of did things for, they sent me up to Terrigal, where I had no idea where that was, and they were opening another brothel. And they said, can you go recruit some girls for the brothel and look around? And so they connected me with the bikies up there. And then I met this guy that night. His name was Dean. And
that's my brother's name too, probably.
Oh, is it? There you go. So his name is Dean, and then he's big. Like I'm 6 foot, almost 6'4", and he makes me look small. And he knew a girl. It was her 18th birthday, and her name was Karina, and she came up to say hello, and I was like literally knocked off my feet. I was like, whoa, she's amazing. And anyway, I asked for a number. I didn't know till quite a bit later, but when she went to write it down, the bouncer grabbed her and said, oh, you're not giving that guy your number, are you? She's like, oh yeah. And she was a really innocent sort of Mormon girl. And then he said, whatever you do, don't give him your number. And please don't say I said anything. He's the sort of guy that makes people disappear. But fortunately she did. Like, fortunately, she gave me her number. I went back to Sydney. Everything went really bad. I ended up sort of living in this abandoned building in Camperdown, huge drug habit, just everything. I can't even explain it to you. It was just really bad. And then I rang Dean, and I only met him sort of once, but spoke to him a couple of times. But I rang him and said, can you come and pick me up? This would have been 6 months plus later, maybe a year later, I don't know the time. And I said, can you come pick me up? I'm going to be dead or in jail any day. And he said, he just drove down, and I left with just what I was wearing. And he took me to his parents' house and put me out the back of his parents' house in this little room. And I stayed there for 9 months.
Wow.
Anyway, I was in a bad psychosis. I was injecting so much drugs and was just nowhere. And I was still with Karina. She was hanging around, and her parents sent her to Queensland to try and get her away from me and all of these things. And then I rang an ex-girlfriend in Sydney, Lisa. It was like 9 months later. And I was drawing stick figure people in this back room for months on end. And I named him Duncan. And that's how bad I was. I was like in this total delusional world.
Wow.
And I rang Lisa and I said, I'm in a bit of trouble. Because I thought, I have to do something. What am I doing here? I said, I'm in a bit of trouble. She's like, you're in a lot of trouble. You've left a huge mess down here. I said, what should I do? And she goes, why don't you get into real estate? And I'm like, oh, that sounds good. What's real estate? So I just grabbed the phone book and just rang everybody and said, do you have a traineeship? And no one would give me a job, but this lady ended up giving me a job in a home office. And I said, look, I don't have a home, I don't have a car, I don't have anything. And Dean bought me a couple of pairs of pants and a couple of polo shirts. And she put me in a caravan on her property.
Wow.
And she said, if you can just door knock every day. And that's what I did. And I used to just, she used to bring me to work. And then over time, I ended up renting this room off an old lady that was friends of Karina's. And I used to get the bus into work. And I used to walk the streets all day, just asking people if they want to sell their house. And then day after day in the rain, it didn't matter what it was. I had nothing else to offer anyway. And then one day I got home, this would have been a year later, maybe more. And Ray, who owned the fish and chip shop in Killarney Vale was this little country town in nowhere, just with a few little shops. And then Ray rings me at Tina's house when I walked in, and he goes, Matt, it's Ray from the fish and chip shop. And I said to him, how on earth did you get this number? Like, I was sort of in hiding a little bit. I said, how'd you get this number? And he goes, don't worry about that. He goes, you've just been on Australia's Most Wanted. And I was like, oh, bugger. Really? Yeah. So, and then Karina's dad turned up, and then I went and handed myself back in Sydney, and they took me to court straight away. And I had 14 warrants out for my arrest for all different things. Anyway, Karina's mum came and the old lady came, and they testified and all this sort of stuff. And Karina's mum was crying in the thing, saying, I'm really trying to turn my life around. And then the judge looked at me at the end, and she said, I don't know what happened. Angels intervened. I don't know. And she said, Matt, you should be going to jail for quite a few years today. And she said, I just see some good in you. And she said, if you back here again, I'll send you for most of your life. And so I walked out of there, and I rang Dean, and I said, I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to become Australia's #1 agent. And then from then off I went. I had to do community service and all this sort of stuff in the middle of trying to work. But yeah, that's what happened.